So we briefly mentioned about externalities before, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. And then we'll talk about Lorentz curve and Gini coefficient. So externality, we said, is when a market transaction occurs and somebody who's not in that market transaction, an outsider, gets affected by that transaction. So we said that when a coal factory is producing coal, they're the suppliers and some people buy coal from them, right? But the people around in that town get negatively affected by the pollution that the factory produces, right? So that's a negative externality example. So externality basically is when a market transaction occurs and an outsider who's not part of the transaction gets positively or negatively affected by the transaction. So what the government does, or government should do, is that if there is a negative externality, if people are negatively getting affected by a market transaction, the government should put a tax on that transaction to compensate for the loss that people or the discomfort that people are feeling. So when you put the tax on that negative externality, it kind of compensates the discomfort of the people. Because tax, remember, tax basically gets back to the public, right? In terms of tax money, like they make roads with it, it's for public. So they can make roads with it, food stamp money, all of that. So taxing the negative externality basically compensates the negative effects of that transaction. Similarly, there are positive externalities. So a positive externality would be as simple as somebody mowing their lawn regularly and keeping the street clean, right? If every single house mows the lawn, what happens to the entire street? The entire street looks good. So by you mowing your lawn, you're putting a positive externality on the society because the entire street looks good, the entire neighborhood looks good. Similarly, another example of positive externality would be like any nonprofit organization that's working for nonprofit and genuinely trying to help people, society, making it better off. So Youngstown Neighborhood Development Corporation, it's a nonprofit organization that I worked for. And they literally painted houses for people who couldn't afford to paint their own homes, and they did things like that, cleaning and just making the neighborhood better, did block parties to bring some life into the neighborhood. So something like that brings positive externality. So what should the government do when there is an activity going on that has a positive externality? The government should subsidize them, right? Subsidy. And give them extra money or something, funds. So let's do an example where a simple example where we're driving to Cleveland, right? We're deciding whether we should drive to Cleveland or not. And the costs associated with driving to Cleveland and the benefits associated with driving to Cleveland. So deciding whether to drive to Cleveland. Now, there are going to be some private costs associated with the trip, and there's going to be some social costs associated with the trip. So, what are some of the private costs that you'll have to pay if you want to go to Cleveland? So what are some of if you are deciding to go to Cleveland, what do you need? Some of the costs.
Money for the flight.
What?
You can drive. Gas money.
Gas money. So you need gas money. What else? Tolls.
Coffee on the way.
Coffee on the way, sure. Time is money,
Time,
right?
yes.
If you're driving, it's costing you your time. There's an opportunity cost of time. Every single thing that you spend doing one thing, you cannot do something else. So there's some you could be doing something else instead of going to Cleveland. So time. What else? Parking. Cleveland doesn't have, you have to pay a lot. So these are some of the costs. So let's say that private cost total is $20. Alright, now what are some of the social costs of your trip? So when you are driving to Cleveland, what's it costing people around you? Like, that affects them negatively or something. Like pollution, like when you drive to Cleveland, your car does make some pollution, right? So that could be like a social cost, right? So you're gonna make pollution. And that is a cost to society. Because you choose to drive to Cleveland, you're costing society pollution. They have nothing to do with your trip. Yeah.
You're running a business of some sort, and then you go to Cleveland, and the rest of your employees can't work that day.
And the rest of your what?
Employees can't go into work that day, because that's a social problem.
If you're running a business and you go to Cleveland,
Yeah, like you have, like you're there, like you gotta be there to manage everyone, and when you're gone, you just don't let any of your employees come in. Like you just give them all.
and what? I'm sorry, I don't understand.
So like if you're trying to make a trip out to Cleveland, right? You run a business, and you leave like say on a Monday or something, you can't go to work that day. So you don't want any of your employees coming to work on Monday because your business is closed. That'd be a social cost towards them because they can't come in because of your trip.
Yeah, exactly. So any private trips or anything that you're doing personally for yourself, and you're shutting down business because of that, and people cannot come to work, that's a social cost. They're not making money because of you. So that's a good example. So pollution would be one. In this case, there's a potential for accidents, right? So if possible accidents could be a cost. Wear and tear of the road, right? You're using the road, and the more you use it, the more wear and tear, stuff like that. So we're gonna say social cost is equal to $5. We're gonna say social benefit is equal to $0. Why 0? Because nobody is benefiting from you going to Cleveland, right? Only you benefit from it. Socially, like anyone else, not really related to it. So 0, people are not receiving any benefit from it. So this was private cost, right? Private cost is 20. Social cost is 5. Social benefit is 0. Private benefit. So this was private cost, this is private benefit. Private benefit is $22. So you're getting $22 worth of benefit from your trip. Now, should you do the trip? Well, so social benefits include private benefit plus social benefit. Which in this case is private benefit is 22, social benefit is 0, so $22. Social cost is private cost plus social cost. So in this case, private cost is $20 and social cost is $5. So that's $25. So in this case, this trip makes society worse off. This trip makes society worse off. By how much?
$3.
$3.
Minus $3.
Social cost is greater than social benefit, right? So by social cost is 25, social benefit is 22. So by $3, it makes society worse off. It makes society worse off by $3. Now, what can you do to internalize this $3? How can somebody take account of like society getting worse off by $3? By putting a tax on it, right? So once they figure out that this is approximately how much society is worse off, they try to put that amount of tax on the transaction, right? So in this case, your demand is based on social benefits and private benefits. So private benefits and in this case social benefits was also equal. So social benefits is usually 0. For a private activity, right? So if it's a private activity, social benefit is going to be usually 0. So demand is based on private benefits and in this case social benefits as well. Supply is based on private cost this market equilibrium is price private and quantity private. But if you put social cost into account, the $3 extra, that would, this is social cost, supply, social cost. At this equilibrium point, there is efficiency. E for efficiency. So efficiency leads to highest benefits to society. Leads to higher benefits to society. Basically, what's this saying is that beyond this point, we are worse off. So let this many people go to Cleveland. But beyond this point, society is worst off. So this is your dead weight loss area. Society is worst off beyond this point. So private cost was, something, $20 or what, and then social cost was about 25, right? Private cost was 20, social cost was about 25. There was a $3 difference, is what we calculated, right? So basically it's saying that charge them $3 extra. Charge them $3 extra. It will decrease the supply, so a little bit less people will go to Cleveland. Not everybody would be able to go.